Merry meet. Welcome to Witch Magic. I'm Dawn, and I will be taking you on a spiritual journey to all things magic and witchcrafts. Hello, my name is Dawn, also known as Magaradina in the witchy world. Welcome to my first podcast, my new podcast. I'm glad you can make your way here. I'll be taking you on a spiritual journey, talking about different aspects of witchcraft. But for this episode, I just want to introduce myself and tell you how I get into the craft and how I became a witch. So I was introduced to witchcraft by my mother-in-law at the time. She's no longer with us. She passed away a long time ago, nor am I with her son anymore, but she was a witch. I've always been fascinated with witches and spells and magic, but I always thought you had to be born into it or you had to be born that way. I know it's kind of silly, but that's just what I thought. And she told me otherwise. She said that anybody can follow this path. You just have to know a few things about it. So she's the one who brought me my first book called Be a Goddess by Francesca de Grandis. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I was so excited. This began kind of like my initiation into the craft, as there are weekly lessons in the book. So I actually did the lesson by lesson, reading one chapter a week and doing the activity at the end, which was very hard for me because once I get my hands on a book, I just want to read. So for me to stop at a certain point when I'm not ready to stop, I'm like, okay, this is kind of difficult. But I was determined to do it the right way. I'm putting that in quotes. And I disciplined myself to do it. So that's what I did. My mother-in-law is also the one that gave me my first tools. She sent me a whole big box full of everything I need to start my altar. I mean, she bought me my first athame, my wand, a bell, cauldron, everything. I was so excited to open this box. It was like Christmas time for me. It was so amazing. And, I've seen spells work. I've had spells that worked, and I'm not going to get into major detail here or anything like that, but I've seen it work and I've seen magic happen. And it's not like you see in the movies or on TV where you can snap your fingers or wiggle your nose or wave your wand at something and something instantaneously happens. It actually takes a little bit of preparation, and sometimes it takes a certain amount of time to work, to see it fully work. And that's something we'll go over in a later episode. So a little more about myself, I guess. I have 3 grown children and 2 grandchildren at this time, which is April of 2022. And I have been living with my life partner for about 4 years now. And hopefully we'll be getting ready to take our relationship to the next level pretty soon. I'm also a childcare teacher. I teach a classroom of 2-year-olds. So they keep me on my toes and it's pretty interesting. So I really love it a lot. But anyway, let's get back into witchcraft and magic and everything like that. What I'm planning to do with this podcast is once a week, tell you a little bit more and more about witchcraft and the different paths of witchcraft, and spells and everything like that. So we'll be going over things like setting up your altar and a little bit about astrology, divination, color correspondences, all kinds of things. I do have a website called Witch Magick, and I will make sure to put the link on my show notes so that you can go and visit it. And I also just started a new Facebook group with the same name, Witch Magick. So I did have like a business kind of page on Facebook, but I felt like that wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't interactive enough, it wasn't personal enough. So I decided to start this Facebook group based on this podcast and also on my website, which I will be adding more to the website as we go along. But for now, there's the basics on there. So if you wanted to check that out, I recommend going there. And like I said, I'll be putting these links on the show notes so that you can have easy access to them. So anyway, I also want to talk about magical names. So I choose to have a magical name when I work with the craft, and it's called Magaradina. And that's a Portuguese name. And that's what I use. That's the name I use to call on the spirits, the elements, and the deities, which, again, we will talk more about those in depth in different episodes. You don't have to have a magical name. I just like to use it to kind of differentiate between the spiritual world and the mundane. It just kind of helps me a little bit. So, I know that when I'm working with magic, I want to use my magic name. Does that make sense? Again, that's not a requirement. You don't need to have any kind of different name. Your regular name is just fine, Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the different paths of witchcraft. So the two main paths to follow are pagan and Wiccan. And they are very similar, but there are minor differences. So I consider myself pagan. I've always followed the pagan path. And the differences are that Wiccans believe in one god and one goddess, whereas pagans believe in many gods and goddesses. And I believe also that Wiccans do believe in the different deities, but they're not as powerful as just the main god and goddess. And also, Wiccans tend to have more stricter guidelines. I don't want to really say rules, but guidelines, whereas paganism is more free, I guess is a good way to say it. And neither one is right or wrong, and neither one is the better one or the worst one. It's just which path resonates with you. What types of beliefs that you have and how you want to go about doing it. You might explore all different kinds of paths. Because honestly, I also go along with a little bit of Buddhism and Hinduism as well. As a matter of fact, my go-to goddess a lot of the times is called Saraswati, and she's a Hindu goddess. She's not very well known, so it's very difficult for me to find statues of her everywhere and images and all that kind of stuff, but they are out there and you can find them. But anyway, there's many that you can choose from, and they all have different aspects. So if you're working with, let's say, a love spell, and I don't mean make someone fall in love with you. I just mean, even loving yourself or, having a loving relationship with the people around you. There are certain gods and goddesses that you can work with that will tend to be more effective for that. But again, it all depends on how comfortable, you feel with these things. So as we go on later episodes, I won't be mentioning stuff like color correspondences, like what colors to use for certain things, herbs, incenses, what herbs to use, what fragrances in the incenses are best beneficial to certain types of magic, and what gemstones, crystals, whatever. But in the end, it's all what you feel comfortable with and what you strongly believe in. So if a magic spell, tends to call for, let's say, frankincense, okay? And maybe you don't like the scent of frankincense. Maybe it repels you. Maybe it disgusts you, You don't want to use it. Just because the magic spell says to use it, you don't have to, Because really, when you do a spell or you work magic, you're doing what is best suited for you. So if you don't like a particular smell or even a particular color or anything like that, feel free to change it up. I mean, it's not set in stone. Basically, when you read spell books or when like people talk about spells and they talk about, oh, this is what you need for this is what you need for that. It's like a guideline. It's like following a recipe. If you're making, let's say, some kind of meal for a family and you want to follow this recipe, but there's an ingredient that you do not like. Like for me, for an example, I don't like celery. All right. I can stand celery when it's nice and soft, if it, like in a soup or something, but I don't like the crunch. I don't like the celery. I don't like the crunchiness, the taste. Actually, the smell of it makes me nauseous, to be honest. So I'm not going to add celery to my recipe because guess what? I'm not going to eat it. So if I'm making it for somebody else, that's one thing. If they happen to like the celery, but I am going to kind of go by with what I like and kind of change it up to, what I have on hand or whatever, basically whatever works for me, right? So, yeah. And then the thing about pagans, Wiccans, and witches. So, not all pagans identify as witches. Not all Wiccans identify as witches. And not all witches identify as either pagans or Wiccans. Does that make sense? That sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But the thing is, it depends on how you feel. So I'm a pagan, but I do also call myself a witch. All right? A lot of people don't like that term because they think of, the Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch, whatever like that. But that's a movie, that's fiction. Let's be real. If you don't want to call yourself a witch, you don't have to. That is totally up to you. You can follow the pagan or Wiccan path without calling yourself a witch. And that is perfectly fine. You don't have to dress the part. You don't have to wear the pointed hat or the cape, the robe, whatever like that. But if you want to, that's good too. It's all how you feel. This is you. This is your path and how you want to go down it. Okay? So I just want to make sure that you realize that you don't have to go step by step by what people are saying. This isn't like the Bible where if you, go down a wrong way, you're going to be blamed for your sins. You're going to, get punished for your sins. No. Paganism and Wiccan and going on this spiritual journey of witchcraft or magic, if you just rather call it a magical journey, has different ways of seeing it, and there is really no right or wrong way. The only thing that I would say to you is that to make sure that you're using it for good, okay? Using it for good intentions, because when you start messing with evil or dark magic or, you're hexing somebody or whatever like that, that's not really a good thing to do, And there is bad and good in every religion, culture, race, whatever you will. We see it all the time. It's there. Is there evil in magic? There are some people that perform dark magic. That's not me. If that's what you choose to do, then maybe you might want to listen to somebody else. But I'm all about love and light and peace and, good karma and good spirituality and positivity. So that's going to do it for today. I will be airing these podcasts about once a week, so be sure to tune in. You might want to choose to get notified when I air so that you don't miss a thing. If you have any comments, please feel free to connect with me on my Facebook group. I will leave the link to that, along with my website, on the show notes. Blessed be.